Okay, picture this. It's December 1801. Napoleon Bonaparte, the guy who's basically the master of Europe, decides to make a massive bet. He gets together the absolute best of the French army, puts his own brother-in-law in charge, and sends them on one single make-or-break mission. Sail to France's richest colony, crush a rebellion of enslaved Africans, and bring back slavery.
And I mean, the scale of this expedition was just staggering. Over the next couple of years, France would pour a total of 80,000 of its best soldiers into this one Caribbean island, Saint-Domingue. This wasn't some small-time operation. This was a full-blown invasion, designed to lock down the cornerstone of a brand new French empire in the Americas. But the army just vanished. I mean it. Of those 80,000 elite soldiers sent to the island, only about 3,000 ever saw France again. The rest were just gone, eaten up by disease and battle in what turned out to be one of the biggest military disasters in French history.
So that gets us to the big question, right? How on earth did this happen? How did an army of formerly enslaved people, people who were systematically kept from having weapons or an education, manage to defeat the most powerful military on the planet? Well, the answer is an incredible story of strategy, sacrifice, and using the environment itself as a weapon. You see, Napoleon's ambitions were huge. Saint-Domingue was the world's #1 producer of sugar and coffee. It was supposed to be the cash cow. Once he had the island on lockdown, the plan was to move north, occupy the huge Louisiana Territory, and build a massive American empire that could challenge Britain and keep the brand new United States in check. But first, he had to deal with a rebellion. The French were expecting to roll over a disorganized mob. Instead, they ran into him, Toussaint Louverture, a formerly enslaved man, completely self-educated, and an absolute military genius. Louverture just knew he couldn't beat Napoleon's veterans in a straight-up fight. So he just decided not to fight one. And if you look at this comparison, you can see the whole strategy. I mean, sure, the French had better guns, better cannons, all the formal training. No doubt about it. But Louverture's army had 3 things the French had no answer for. They knew the land inside and out for guerrilla warfare, they had a natural immunity to the local diseases, and they had this unbreakable will to be free. They weren't fighting for a paycheck, they were fighting for their actual lives. Louverture's plan was unbelievably ruthless, but it was also brilliant. As the French ships showed up on the horizon, he gave the order to burn the coastal cities to the ground. When the French army finally marched ashore, they found nothing. No food, no shelter, no supplies, just smoldering ruins. He was trading land for time, pulling the Europeans deeper and deeper into the heart of the island. And that brings us to Louverture's most devastating weapon. And it wasn't a gun or a cannon. It was far more effective. It was yellow fever. You see, the Haitian soldiers, having grown up there, had built up a resistance to it. The French, fresh off the boats from Europe, were total sitting ducks. Louverture was knowingly luring them into a massive biological trap. Just think about that quote. He wasn't waiting for another country to send him ships or soldiers. He was waiting for the weather. He knew that when the rains came, the mosquito population would explode, and right behind them would come the fever that would absolutely wreck the French army. Time was his #1 ally. But let's be super clear here. The Haitian army didn't just go hide in the mountains and wait. Oh no, they fought. And they fought with a kind of ferocity that completely shocked the French. And nowhere was that more clear than at the game-changing Battle of Creuzat-Piarreau. The numbers here are, well, they're insane. You've got about 2,000 Haitian defenders inside this little stone fort. And outside, 15,000 of Napoleon's very best soldiers, guys who had fought all over Europe. The French honestly thought they'd take the fort in an hour or 2. The man in charge of that fort was Jean-Jacques Dessalines, Louverture's most hardcore general. He literally had the scars of slavery on his own back, and for him, there was no such thing as retreat. His message to his soldiers was simple and absolute. This wasn't about winning or losing. It was about freedom or death. There was no other option. So what was supposed to be a quick win turned into a 3-week-long meat grinder. The Haitian defenders threw back wave after wave of French attacks. Can you imagine? They were singing revolutionary songs while firing their guns with deadly accuracy. The French were horrified. They realized they weren't fighting a mob, they were fighting a professional army. And after causing all that damage, the Haitian garrison fought their way out in the middle of the night to keep the war going. And the price tag for the French was just staggering. Over 1,500 men lost at one siege. And here's the kicker.
These were combat deaths, not guys dying from disease. For the French High Command, this was a massive psychological blow. So the really crucial point here is that Crête de Pierrot completely shattered the myth that European soldiers were invincible. The French finally understood they were up against a disciplined, determined army that would literally die to the last man rather than be enslaved again. The price of winning was going to be way, way higher than they ever imagined.
So just as the rainy season finally hit, Louverture's prediction came true in the worst way. Yellow fever started ripping through the French army, killing soldiers by the hundreds every single week. The French commander, General Leclerc, knew he couldn't win a conventional war. Panicked and actually dying from the fever himself, he came up with a new, horrifying strategy.
In the letters he sent back to Napoleon, Leclerc basically called for genocide. His plan was to systematically exterminate the entire adult black population on the island. This quote just lays it all bare. The stakes had changed. This wasn't about restoring order anymore. It was a war of racial annihilation.
But this policy of extermination was a fatal mistake. It completely backfired. It destroyed any possibility of a truce and proved to everyone on the island that France's promises of freedom were total lies. So what happened? The entire population, blacks, mixed-race soldiers, everyone, united under Dessalines to fight one final total war for their independence. And this complete unification, well, it set the stage for the final act of the war, an act that led not just to a historic victory, but to a really long and painful chapter that came next. So let's just quickly connect the dots. In late 1803, the Haitians win their final decisive victory. Having been defeated, Napoleon gives up on his American dream and sells the Louisiana Territory to the United States, literally doubling the size of the country overnight. In 1804, Haiti declares its independence, but the story doesn't end there, because in 1825, France came back with warships and a truly chilling demand. And this really forces you to ask a tough question. After you win your freedom on the battlefield, what's the actual price tag? For Haiti, winning the war was one thing. What came next was a whole different kind of punishment. France demanded that the new independent nation of Haiti pay them money, a massive amount of money, to compensate the former French slaveholders for their lost property. And that property included the people of Haiti themselves. In today's money, that forced debt is estimated to be worth over $21 billion. So when you boil it all down, the crucial point is this. Haiti's victory was one of the most important moments in modern history, but the nation was forced to pay for its own freedom twice. First, they paid in blood, defeating the most powerful army on the planet. And then, for the next 122 years, they paid in treasure, systematically having their wealth drained away, wealth they desperately needed to build their new nation. It's a staggering legacy that makes you think, not just about how freedom is won, but about how it can be punished.